fight the power and all that. Can we at least get the Doremi robot of this episode? Cooper for this one featured Nishizawa leading her class towards the setting sun, where they all melted due to its intense heat. Well, that was a short review. Nah, of course, there was a little more in the episode proper. The Ojamajo discussed school clubs and if they were joining any. Doremi suggested that the girls with the music-themed names may as well just join the music club. Well, that, and they also did have signature instruments, including Momoko. Must resist using overtly racist South Park clip. Doremi also enjoyed the fact that the club's advisor was Nishizawa, but her friends knew the truth that we would unfortunately see throughout this episode. The next day, through a kind of clever comparison shot, we saw the differences between Seki's highly organized and disciplined class versus Nishizawa's. Now you see, this is what happens when Nagisa doesn't keep her little brother in check. Yeah, if the students weren't bad enough, this kid named Yoshida, who seemed to be influenced by them, had an even more punchable face. And as a result, the class quickly fell apart. This wasn't helped by Nishizawa not properly asserting herself like an actual teacher, and with that, you already probably have a good idea of what my biggest issue with this episode is going to be, but we'll get more into that later. Anyway, as they talked about, the Ojamajo decided to scope out the music club, with Doremi also revealing her true intentions. Sorry Doremi, but Koji's gonna be busy being the real main character of Grandizer U. Though, if you do turn into the Doremi Robo again, then maybe. Then, after explaining to the Doremi Momoko about the concept of the senpai, they went to the music club that had a grand total of 1 member, with the club president, who looked and sounded like a half-assed Shunchan impersonator, in other words, the current one. Fortunately, I guess, another kid showed up to possibly join. Oh, so we can blame your old man for starting up the emo trend. They also seemed to provide the opening theme to Nishizawa's favorite high school drama that, as we'll learn, was one of the main inspirations for her becoming a teacher for her. Yeah, she decided on her career path mostly based on what sounds like the most stereotypical Japanese high school drama ever. Personally, the only one I've kind of seen was the live-action adaptation of GTO, but still, it was clear that she had an over-romanticized vision of what being a teacher was like, which was going to be Nishizawa, and by extension, this episode's major downfall. Anyway, after a little aside where the Ojamajo burned some pata shoe that Aiko was going to repurpose into some miso soup toppings, I'm guessing this is supposed to hint at a lesson about learning from your mistakes, we cut over to an art class with Nishizawa and Yoshida. And not too surprisingly, through his antics, he set off a chain of events that threw the classroom into chaos. Okay, maybe it's because I've kind of experienced this sort of stuff firsthand, but this just kind of annoys the hell out of me. Like, I just don't find it all that funny when kids cause chaos in the classroom, especially when the teacher is not taking any sort of charge, as it just makes me feel bad for everyone trying to calm things down, while the instigator keeps going at it. Eventually, though, they did stop after Nishizawa snapped. Thus, she tried to seek guidance from Seki, or really more likely, coddling. What? You? No. Yes, no. Yeah, for me, episodes like this that feature the adult characters just don't really work. Like, I'm not saying you can't have an episode focusing on them learning how to become a better parental figure, but in this case, Nishizawa is acting as if she's more like a kid than her students at times. Thus, it is hard for me to feel bad for her than, say, Doremi, as she is an adult acting way below her age and expecting us to feel bad for her, which is way too common of a trend these days with actual adults. And like most middle-aged Karens, when all else fails, Seki suggested that they just drown out their sorrows with sugar. Don't worry, that crystally stuff that the Ojamajo sprinkled on your tart will make sure you lose a lot of weight. Granted, Seki remained a good character, telling her junior about how teachers and students learn from each other, including the mistakes they make, which is a good lesson in everything, but again, that's just kind of held back by Nishizawa's lack of maturity that makes this story less than endearing. Anyway, as legit good as Seki's advice was like taking things at her own pace, ultimately what would somehow end up saving Nishizawa's job would be a trip down nostalgia lane, then also went to the Veil rental store. Yep, she rewatched her favorite drama with the hot-headed teacher and her bug-eyed students. And as a result, she suddenly became a slightly more competent teacher. Actually, unless you count the sweets baking, y'all haven't used magic throughout this whole episode. Not that you really should waste it on this lady. Because while she did do her job a little better, she also found new ways to screw up, like taking her class out on an unauthorized jog outside of the school, and it took so long that it ended up eating into their lunch break, which Seki, Doremi, and Momoko ended up discovering.
Nikumi wa?
I don't know.
Hey, doctor, do you know?
I don't know!
Okay, you don't have to yell. As a result, she kind of rightfully got into trouble with the vice principal, and you know, as much of a hard ass as this guy usually is, everything he said here was completely right. She took them out with permission, they ended up skipping their lunch break, and she might put them at risk of having a meeting with Truck-kun, and Shoma still wasn't even born yet. And yet, because her class suddenly respected her, she ended up getting a slap on the wrist.
We hope you've enjoyed No Moral Theater.
And with that, the episode ended with Nishizawa having watched another high school drama that, when applied to grade schoolers, could probably interpret as being needlessly aggressive towards them. So yeah, could someone please start writing up this lady's pink slip already? Yeah, this episode was just kind of a wash. Like, going into this episode, Nishizawa really wasn't that much of a character, and yet this spotlight somehow made her even less of one. Moreover, just as an episode of Ojamajo Doremi, this didn't really feel all that magical girly, and more just, well...
This is bad comedy.
Yeah, that. While the show has a lot of characters who screw up a lot, the thing is, most of them are kids, so it's a little more understandable. And sure, we've had a few good adult spotlight episodes where they need to recognize their own flaws, but even with, say, Maja Miller and her prejudices, we can understand where she was coming from. Meanwhile, Nishizawa's issues seem to come from a place of just being way too immature for her age. Thus, seeing her initial failures as a teacher feel less like an honest mistake, and instead the makings of an overgrown child, which honestly is a very real problem in our modern day, unfortunately. Not helping matters was the fact that what she did to become a quote-unquote better teacher was partially emulating someone else, specifically Seki, and then watching a TV show for inspiration, which then led her to overstep her bounds and end up taking her class of grade schoolers outside of the school with just her as the supervisor. Really, it was only through plot convenience that this class that has the Stooges and their disciple that nothing ended up happening. But yeah, as a result, Nishizawa's story at best felt uninspired, and at worst, just frustrating with how much she unjustly got away with it. Meanwhile, as just an episode of this particular show, it lacked both the usual fun magical antics and even the solid lesson of the day. I guess they were trying to teach about learning from your mistakes and how students and teachers can learn from each other, find lessons and everything, but through Nishizawa's story, it just wasn't communicated all that well. And overall, this is just a very meh episode. I guess for those who enjoy cheesy high school dramas, this might be a bit of a fun watch as a parody, but for me, I think I prefer watching the former delinquent teacher who beats up punks as Kenshiro. Thank you for watching, and as always, maybe check out some of our other videos on this channel. We're currently working on the next part of the Max Heart reviews, but with a certain other series returning very soon, we might also do some other side projects in celebration of it. We'll see how it turns out. Still to look forward to that. Until then, though, for now, my friends, and I guess we should close out with a dash towards the sunset, but yeah, that's gonna be a while more. Screw it, I'm just gonna go back watching anime.